Hello everyone. In this video we will be looking at what does inflation mean and what are the types of inflation. So inflation is perhaps the second most serious macroeconomic problem which the world economy faces today. Inflation can be, in very simple terms, be referred as a continuous rise in general price level over a long period of time. Inflation is a continuous rise in price rise in which price? That is, rise in the general price level over a long period of time. This increase in price has been one of the most common features of the developed and developing economy. Some economists consider inflation as a dominant economic problem in modern times. But let's understand what does actually inflation mean. In simple terms, inflation means considerable and persistent rise in general level of prices over a long period of time, like we have already defined it. According to Colburn, inflation is a situation of too much money. Inflation is a situation of too much money chasing too little goods, or too few goods. We can say too few goods because we are quoting the definition of Colburn, so it has to be accurate. Crowther defined inflation as a state in which the value of money is falling, that is, prices are increasing. According to Harry J. Johnson, inflation is sustainable rise in prices. But one of the most acceptable definitions was given by Ackley. Ackley has defined inflation as inflation is a situation in which there is a persistent and appreciable rise in the general price level. It has been believed that a moderate rate of inflation is considered to be desirable in any particular economy. This is considered because of few reasons. So let's see those reasons why moderate level of inflation is considered to be acceptable. So the first reason as to why this is so is because a moderate rate of inflation rate of inflation keeps the economic outlook optimistic and promotes economic activity as well as prevents stagnation. Secondly, it also helps in mobilization of resources by increasing the overall rate of saving, savings and investment. Inflationary financing is widely used to finance economic growth of underdeveloped countries. Thirdly, it is historically evident that despite intermittent deflation, the general price level has always exhibited a rising trend, and in some case, some increase in general price level is inevitable in dynamic and progressive economy. Okay, some increase in the general price level is inevitable in a dynamic and progressive economy. So now let's see the types of inflation. There are a few kinds of inflation. When we talk about inflation, there are certain types of inflation. So let's look at the types of inflation. The first type of inflation is known as moderate inflation. As the name suggests, it is a moderate level of there is a moderate level of price increase in the general price level. There is a moderate increase in the general price level. There is a moderate increase in the general price level over a long period of time. It may vary from country to country. Single digit inflation is generally considered to be a moderate level of inflation. Single digit inflation is considered to be a moderate inflation. An important feature of moderate inflation is that it is predictable. Okay, it is predictable. It is predictable. It is predictable, and here money continues to be a medium of exchange. The next type of inflation is known as galloping inflation. Okay. The next type is known as galloping inflation. Now, as the name suggests, according to Baumel and Binder, according to Baumol and Binder, galloping inflation refers to an inflation that proceeds at an exceptionally high rate. Okay, it is an inflation which proceeds at an exceptionally high rate. Now, according to Samuelson and Nordhaus, inflation in double or triple digit range is of percentage of a year. Inflation in double or triple digit range for percentage a year is galloping inflation. This definition might not be precise because double and triple digit inflation ranges from like 10 to 99%, 99%, sorry, and its economic effects would be very different. So the acceptable definition of galloping inflation can be taken to be as Baumol and Binder, wherein there is a inflation which is exceptionally at a very high rate. That can be considered as a galloping inflation. The third type of inflation is considered to be hyperinflation. Hyperinflation, as the name again suggests, is a price rise. It is a price rise at more than 3-digit rate. Okay, it is a price rise at more than 3-digit rate. Hyperinflation is often defined as an inflation that exceeds 50% per month. An inflation rate of 50% per month means that 100-fold increase in the price level over a year. Paper currency becomes worthless in this case. Paper currency becomes worthless in this case, and the demand for money also drastically reduces. One of the countries which suffered from hyperinflation was Germany. Germany suffered hyperinflation between 1922 and 1923, when the wholesale price index shot up by 100 million% between December 1922 and November 1923. The situation in Germany was such that people used to carry basket load of money to the market and bought the goods in pocket. It was cheaper to burn currency notes to make tea rather than buying tea from the shop, and price of houses in the inflation period, in the pre-inflation period, was sufficient to pay a day's rent in the post-inflation period. Further, the price of coffee at the time of entering the cafe, if it was 4,000 marks, by the time a person finishes his coffee and he raises and starts to pay the bill, it used to become double, and the price of one cup of coffee used to be 8,000 marks. So that was the situation in a particular type of situation wherein in a very speedy manner the rate or the value of the money drastically reduces, and the money sort of loses its value, and it is further no worth, or it is worthless to even have that money in their hand. The next type of inflation, or the last type of inflation which is commonly seen, is known as open and suppressed inflation. Open and suppressed inflation. Now, as the names itself suggest, when there is no control on rising prices and prices are free to find their own level, it is known as a condition of open inflation. So open inflation price rise is not controlled and it is allowed to find its own level. On the other hand, if price control, if there is a certain control over the price increase, then it is known as a suppressed inflation. Now this control can be statutory fixation. It can be statutory fixation, it can be fixation of price ceiling, fixation of price ceiling, it can be rationing of consumption, it can be rationing of consumption of scarce goods, it can be controlled distribution of goods, controlled distribution of goods, or it can be it can be substandardization of commodities. In spite of all of these controls, if the price rise and inflation does take place, but at a lower rate than what was the potential rate in the open system, such a kind of inflation is known as a suppressed inflation. कि इतने controls होने के बावजूद अगर prices increase हो रहे हैं, then that is known as a suppressed inflation, because we are trying to suppress the inflation. We are not allowing it to find its own full potential and reach at the price at which it could reach. So in this manner, these are the various types of inflation that are there. In the next video, we will be talking about demand pull inflation. Thank you everyone.